Hi, my name is Sherry Durgan. I'm an instructor at Hawkeye Community College. I'm talking today, however, based on some past experiences. I had a decade as a minister. I worked as a social worker. I also had about a year working as a pregnancy prevention specialist with an excellent organization called It Takes Two out of the Young Men's Resource Center down in Des Moines. So having gone out in the public schools, having talked to people in a variety of settings, I have a lot of feelings about the House File 153. But I want to talk about a personal experience, and I guess I want to make it personal. I see Mr. Rogers' name on this bill, and I guess I want to ask why you would want my friend Lori to die. A couple of years back, I had a very dear friend who had some health problems. And I don't know if anybody is young enough to remember the DES medication that a whole generation of children were then afflicted by. And my friend was one of those people. She could not use any of the hormonal types of birth control. She had been a battered wife, gotten a divorce at the point that I met her in graduate school. She already had 4 children, and one of them was a very young baby, maybe about a year old. She had bled almost to death with the birth of this baby. And then getting involved in a new relationship, a condom broke, she suddenly was pregnant. And her doctor said to her, I know you don't want to hear this, but you cannot have this child. It probably is going to mean that you're going to die in childbirth. And so I recommend that you have an abortion. And she didn't want to tell her family. I was the only person she told. I drove her to Iowa City for that abortion. And I can assure you, people were not celebrating. They were not frivolous. They were not having a fun time. They were not thinking that this was, some quick and easy solution to a difficult problem. I'm very disturbed by the trend I'm seeing that seems to criminalize women for taking care of themselves and their families and having to make tough decisions. I'm not seeing legislation that's addressing issues like rape and incest and people who get multiple people pregnant. We're only seeing the emphasis on women and their doctors. And I can assure you, in most cases, it's not the doctors who are impregnating these women. I really am very disturbed because I think that what I'm reading about these bills makes no sense to me. The idea that I understand, I can appreciate the abortion issue is very controversial. However, if you're not going to allow abortion, you should not also be trying to prevent people from getting birth control information. I can tell you heart-wrenching stories of 13-year-olds in Des Moines that would just curl your hair. I see college students all the time having to cope with all kinds of situations. If we cut off all sources of funding for birth control, for information, for education, are we going to take us back to the 1800s?
Sherry, since you directed that to me, first of all, I want to thank you for your work in helping young people and women in those distressed situations. I, too, have done a lot of that, so I want to thank you very much for doing that. I've never shied away. I am pro-life, and I do believe that. And there are a couple of bills going through the House right now. And 153 does state that I can tell you that there are negotiations going on right now behind the scenes about the life of the mother and all those types of things. So we can continue to, I think, battle through some of those issues that are best for Iowans and best pertaining to this real tough issue that we all struggle with. There also is a bill, HF5, that talks about abortion after 20 weeks. I sponsored that bill also, and I do think that is something that Iowans are ready to look at and to discuss some of the very tough things that takes place, because a baby at 20 weeks is able to feel pain. There are a lot of different things that take place that, if you know what a partial birth abortion is, it's a very gruesome, very inhumane procedure that takes place, and it's very, doesn't happen that often in Iowa, but I don't believe that it should happen in Iowa. So I look forward to these discussions and look forward to what is the best way we can come out of this that addresses all of those concerns.
Would any other legislator like to comment on this issue?
Thank you, Sherry, for your comments. They were well thought out, and I thought they were right on. If that House File 153 comes over and I get an opportunity to vote on it, I'm going to be a no. You know, I really believe that birth control shouldn't be in the form of abortions, but I know women that have had certain situations in their life that lead them to make some very difficult decisions, and a law that just bans that outright for whatever type of procedure, there's always an exception to every one of those cases. And Representative Rogers talked about partial birth abortion, and it seems like it's one of the most gruesome things you could have. We had that debate when I was first elected to the Iowa House, and it was a heart-wrenching debate. But what really made me decide that I was going to vote against the ban was a woman who was pro-life that came to the Iowa House of Representatives and had 2 young toddlers alongside her. And she had a condition that 1 in maybe 10,000 individuals have, with an infant that was about to be born, I guess a fetus, that had no brain in it. And every once in a while you get these what they call water babies. Their head swells up about 3 times the size. She had the same type of condition with bleeding that this woman here had, and that they said that if she would have went through that process, she could have died with it, but she would probably never ever have another child again. And so they performed this procedure. Now in that case, that fetus would have died immediately once it was born, but this partial birth abortion law would have banned that. She stood beside me and told me this. She said, I was pro-life, and here are 2 children that never would have happened if I wouldn't have been able to have that procedure. How can you say that this bill is pro-life because those children wouldn't happen? I would have never had my own children, and if you outlaw this, that is the repercussions. And so I think that as legislators, we shouldn't be making decisions as doctors. I think that choice should be between the woman.
Representative Barry, did you want to speak?
Well, after that, I don't think I need to say anything. Senator Donser just said it.
All right. Thank you very much. Did you want to speak?
Thank you, Sherry, for your story and your really emotional testimony. House File 153 does not leave any exceptions for the woman in case of her health or anything. I guess some Republicans realize that that's even too much for their own party. Even some Republicans do not believe in that. So now they're, I guess, having some negotiations about it. But I like to do research, and I like to be well informed before I make any decision. And the research that I've done, I mean, partial birth abortion is really sad. And according to a report from 2009, the Iowa Public, I forgot the source. There were 6 abortions after the 20 weeks, and they happened, and from what I could gather, they happened at the University of Iowa, and what we know is that they only do it for health reasons. So I don't know why we need politicians getting into these really sensitive health issues that affect women. I have never met a woman that thinks it's okay to have an abortion at that stage, but sometimes they're forced in such tough circumstances, and I don't know what the future holds for, the woman in my family or my friends, and I just think that the decision, such a private decision, needs to be made by the family in those circumstances, not by politicians in our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that issue. And next.